Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live stream. We are here to talk about perhaps the only thing we're going to be talking about for the rest of our lives, which is AI. It has, 2023 has been the year of AI, no doubt. I think ChatGPT just turned 1 year old, if I recall correctly the date. So obviously, we've all been tinkering, learning together, seeing the strengths and the weaknesses of AI. Today, our guest is Jacob McMillen. He's a freelance copywriter, and he also works with other writers as sort of a consultant and coach. And he has been one of the, I would say one of the experts on using ChatGPT and using AI within the writing process. And so today he's going to share with us some of his tips and tricks and workflows for how to use AI to, accelerate your process, create better content, work faster, smarter, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really excited to have Jacob on. We'll bring him on in just a moment. Before we do that, I have a few requests for you. Number one, say hello. Just pop into the chat. Let me know who is joining us today for the live session. Excited to see you all. Number two, please like our video here. It's going to help other folks find our content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our community. So would love if you could hit the thumbs up, give us a like. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button. On our YouTube channel, we host at least once a month. We have live workshops, Q&As, roundtable discussions, all kinds of really great stuff from some of the smartest folks in content marketing and SEO. So yeah, hit that subscribe button. Stay up to date on the upcoming sessions. We are just about to drop our Q1 calendar, and those sessions will appear on our upcoming schedule on YouTube. So definitely hit that subscribe button. And number three, if you're not already a member, I'd like to invite you to join Top of the Funnel. Top of the Funnel is our free community. It's built in Slack, but it's where you're going to find the latest information on all these upcoming sessions that we have, live sessions, those types of things. Plus, there's a community of nearly 3,000 content marketers, SEO folks, inbound marketers of all sorts and types. And so, inside there's discussions, questions, tool recommendations, work opportunities, just all kinds of cool stuff, all kinds of really smart people in there sharing knowledge, asking questions, and just helping each other out. So to join, just visit yesoptimist.com/tofu. Once again, it's a free community, so we'd love to have you join us there and join us for all of our future content, and as well as participate in some of the awesome discussions that are happening inside Slack. All right. With all of that out of the way, let me once again introduce today's guest, Jacob McMillen. As I said, is a freelance copywriter, as well as sort of a coach and a consultant, and really has been sharing a ton of great information about using AI as a writer, as a content creator. Super excited to have him join us today. Jacob, hey, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, so glad to connect with you. We were just talking offline, and you were saying that you've spent what was it, like 8 hours just building like a single part of this workflow and sort of this GPT that you've developed.
Yeah, just trying to crack the formatting like code or something. And speaking of, if anyone who's on today can help me out with this, please, if you found anything that gets past like ChatGPT's fixation on 40 to 60 word paragraphs and like list it's either that or list content. It's either like a wall of text in 40 to 60 word segments or list. Just trying to get more of a natural formatting going. So if anyone has found some success with that, the only thing I've managed to tweak out is like occasionally with like introductions. You can see on the screen here, I have a blog intro GPT that I built, and it actually will do some like one-line paragraphs. I don't know why I can get it from that and nothing else. Occasionally with email content, but I think I probably spent maybe 50 to 60 hours total on this GPT, and like 8 of those were just trying to crack formatting unsuccessfully. So yeah.
All right. Well, we know our number one battle is we can't write short sentences, so that's our advantage as humans, I guess.
Yeah, ultimately, at the end of the day, I am a writer, so I can just take the format it gives me and make it work. Like I can fix it myself. It's just, it seems like such a simple thing that I shouldn't have to do, with all of AI's advanced capabilities, and this is what I'm spending my time on.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, it gives us all hope that we're still one step ahead, and also we're probably all not alone in some of those same challenges when dealing with AI. So,
something I love about being an expert in the AI writing space for a field that's existed briefly, is that no matter how much time I spend on this, someone else has spent their time in a whole other area. And so I'm constantly learning new things from both people who are kind of like experts in one area or enthusiasts, or even just people who will hop on when I'm, doing a presentation about what I know, and they'll, give great tips. So I'm getting phenomenal insights from all angles on this. And it's a fun field to be learning in when, every person who's willing to invest a few hours can find something that nobody else has really found, or at least nobody else who's promoting that knowledge around.
Yeah. That is an amazing. Yeah, we live in a very community learning time right now with AI, where we're all sort of learning at the same pace.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, tell us what we've got in store for today.
Yeah, so I want to take you guys through my long form SEO kind of like writing to rank process. I know that's a near and dear, objective in this community. To give some of my credentials about why I think I have a good approach to the AI is because I had a good approach before AI. And I think that's ultimately what AI comes down to is, can you build a good workflow without the tools? And then the tools just make the good workflow better. And so before this, that I would not say this about anything else in my entire life. I'm someone who's always been a little above average at most things, but exceptional at nothing. Long form content for ranking was my exception. I think I was probably top 50 in the world at that. I was the number one result for the word copywriter for 3 years. I got a client to be the number one result for consulting. So like really high level stuff was always my bread and butter. And a lot of people who follow my brand on LinkedIn, they know me just because they found my guide ranking first for website copywriting, email copywriting books, all this stuff. So like actually writing and ranking stuff before the AI era was my bread and butter. And so when AI came along, I was like, hold up, like this is something that I really need to be paying attention to. And so, I was using a lot of the early GPT-3 tools. I invested in a company that I thought, was Copy AI, which was, I really liked their approach to more granular uses instead of this one-click solution to longer, complex workflows. And I advised a lot of VC firms. As much as I hate VC in general, I advised a lot of firms and consultants on the AI space through 2020 and beyond. And then GPT-4 came out and kind of threw my world upside down, because all of a sudden it went from something that was good at structure and brainstorming and not much else to something that could write, really raised the floor for writing across the world globally. For so long, my coaching message when I was helping other copywriters learn how to build a business in this space was, listen, like the average entrepreneur does not know how to communicate through written language. Like they can give you a verbal, a verbal elevator pitch that will make you a believer. But the moment they got to write something down, it's nonsense. It's overly formal. It's stiff. It has none of the charisma. It's lacking in clarity. A lot of people just aren't good writers. And GPT-4 has massively raised the floor, because you can put your disjointed ideas in there and it's going to give at least like a competent, delivery, a readable, understandable, comprehensible delivery at minimum of what you're trying to say. And that right there, like eliminates a lot of the need of what people actually needed help on. And from there, it comes down to then, okay, beyond just basic communication now, what can you bring to the table? And I think that is what informs my whole approach to SEO and writing is what do we, it was always, even before AI, was what do we bring to the table that other people aren't doing? What's the legwork we can do? How do we take a deeper look at this topic? How do we make it more contextual? How instead of just throwing, even with long form, so many of the competitors that I would beat over the years, they'd take a scattering of ideas and just throw them at the page to make long content. So you had 3,000 words, but it didn't actually go from A to B to C. Like it didn't walk the reader through a journey where they actually are learning something. It was a lot of ideas with the goal of, skyscraping, like outscaling. Ironically, that wasn't even the goal of, the skyscraper technique, but it's what the market ended up using it for. It was just bigger and better at the cost of like actual comprehensibility. And so what made, the reason I really like my process, both pre and post AI, is it's designed like a lesson plan. Like it's designed like, how do we think through real user intent and think about what are people wanting to learn from this search query, and then walk them through like we were teaching in a classroom. What's the context that we need to create? What are the hooks that we need if we're trying to teach something that maybe isn't as sexy? What's kind of a sexy hook we can throw in there, a story or something that's going to grab that attention? And so my content historically has averaged 6 to 7 minute read times, average. And I think that's why it's funny. For years, I would say user behavior on your content is what's informing Google's ranking decisions. It's not what they tell us. And it was only recently that legal filings forced some of their behind the scenes data out and showed that I was right the whole time. Like it's always been user behavior, SLI keywords, all that stuff. It's kind of been a red herring the whole time. And I never paid attention to it. And then I would rank, and that made me believe that the whole time. And so it's been interesting to be proven right on that. Because when I got into this space 10 years ago, why would anyone listen to me? I don't know anything. And I was like disagreeing with some major, experts at Moz and stuff like that. And and it was like, I just was like, hey, it's ranking. So, what are you going to tell me? But anyway, all that said, getting into the AI itself, I'm going to go through a couple concepts of how I like to approach long form with AI as the assistant. And then we're going to do a live example. And I want to use, what someone in the audience, someone who's listening, watching right now, I would love, if anyone would be willing to volunteer an article or keyword that you're working on now, I would love to do a live example with, what you're working on instead of just showing something I did in the past. So if anyone wants to be that guinea pig, go ahead and, be thinking about what you want to put that in, and then, someone volunteer a keyword in the comments, and, we'll pick one when it is time for that. So, anyway, all that said, getting into how I approach AI, the places, I think the best place to start is to talk about, the areas that I think AI is best at helping with. And then also the areas that I think it's kind of you hurt yourself when you try to rely on AI for that focus. So starting with the one that preceded GPT-4, content structure, I kind of talked about it a little already, but this is something that I'd say 90% of good writers that I've worked with over the years suck at structure. I know there's kind of thoughts sometimes on left brain, right brain. I don't really know how true any of that is, but I do know that sometimes people who tend to be more creative struggle a little bit with more structure. Definitely a big issue in the book space. But I think it shows up a lot in content too. One of the clearest things that I like to highlight of bad structure is when someone puts a additional tips section at the end of a long form post. And you see this everywhere. And to me, there's no clear example of someone outing themselves as I have no clue how I'm structuring this piece. Because the thing is, if I'm teaching a lesson, there's two types of things I can tell a student. I can tell them something that advances their knowledge of the concept that I'm teaching them and leads them forward the conclusion and takeaways that I want for them. and I can tell them something that's unnecessary to that and thus distracting from the point that I'm leading them towards. And so when you're structuring out a long form post, when you're trying to answer user intent, when you're trying to convert content, another thing that a lot of people overlook is like, we actually need this content to convert email signups or calls or customers, whatever it is, usually email signups. But we need to be like, everything that we put in that article needs to be leading them from the question they have when they land on the article to the action that we want them to take, and the feelings and conclusions and, you know, aha moments that we want to deliver along the way. So if something isn't like valuable enough that it actually needs to fit into the core structure of the content, like it doesn't need to be in the article at all. So so for me, like you know, a little tangent there, but for me, structure is something that most writers do horribly and AI does amazingly. And that's not to say that you don't get some hallucinations or AI sometimes does a poor job, but AI has a really good grasp of structure because it's pretty mathematical, you know, like it's kind of a more of a science than an art, you know, structuring out how walking someone through comprehension of a topic. And so from as early as GPT-3, I was using, you know, ChatGPT and AI to outline as an initial outline for any content that I would do. And then I would obviously compare it against, you know, what's currently ranking. I would think through just common sense with, you know, thinking through my own use cases of, you know, what I wanted the reader to get while they were in that article. And then, you know, so starting with the structure, I always ask for an outline. And this is something that, you know, as we go through the little long form blog cyborg that I have here, this encodes a lot of the process that I'm going to be talking about. It used to be that I would teach people how to do this in a very roundabout way that required a billion extra steps. But now, you know, with the GPTs, and I'll throw a link here so you guys can access this. No email sign up or any gatekeeping required. Hopefully that will add in there. Sometimes I get issues adding links. You might have to share it for me, Tyler. So I'll send it to you in a private chat. But anyway, so I've been able to encode a lot of this directly into this GPT, as we'll see when we do the live example. But first and foremost, structure, creating something that's going to walk the reader through. Here's the context we want to create. Here are the here are the core takeaways, and then how do we transition this into the conclusion that we want? So we'll start with that. Outlining and content structure. That's the first big one. And then as we get into the core of the article itself, there's kind of two components to delivering information. And I think this analogy, part of I sort of rebranded myself to being the cyborg writer in April. And a lot of the thought process around that is that, you know, there's a lot of things AI does well. There's a lot of things humans do well. In the future, I don't see human-only writers in marketing, you know, not in other pursuits, but in marketing, being able to keep up with people who are not using AI. At the same time, a lot of the initial hype around AI has been from spammers, you know, and low-effort people who are wanting to do their low-effort stuff at scale. And so, you know, when we look at people who try to do one-click AI content and publish it, you know, they're not getting any results from that content. You know, like I've seen the occasional case study that was like, you know, it bulk made like, you know, thousands and thousands of articles and they got some impressive traffic numbers. But I can tell you from working with companies that have had massive traffic numbers, a lot of that type of content, you know, even pre-AI, like just low effort human content at scale designed to just catch all these long tail rankings, it does not convert. You know, like I've seen people literally delete hundreds of thousands of visits from their website because the server costs to host all that traffic was more costly than what they were making from the content itself. You know, so there's a lot of like, we see this on LinkedIn all the time. You know, there's a lot of like red herrings thrown out there. There's a lot of like, fool's errands kind of being thrown out. There's a lot of like case studies with no actual conversion numbers, no revenue numbers. Or, they're making claims that there's no actually support. I've seen brands build, 100,000 followings on LinkedIn without giving a shred of proof on their case studies over multiple years. And they could be legit, but how would you know? Like it's so much easier to make up numbers than it is to actually get them. So anyway, all that said, even if there is the occasional outlier of someone who manages to make AI only work for a time, at the end of the day, SEO has always been a game about trying to build moats. Like it's always been this thing of, how do we not just get the ranking in like the immediate future, but then hold the ranking against progressive challengers? Because if you rank for a year, great. But then if you're losing your rankings as soon as you get them, that defeats the whole idea of SEO as this ever-growing asset that keeps bringing in more and more traffic. So anyway, with all that said, as we get into how we approach, AI from a content perspective, I like to compare it against, if I were to have dinner with someone who was asking me about what I do. Say I got dinner with a friend, we're sitting down, they're not in marketing, he's wanting to understand SEO and content marketing. I would say anywhere from 25 to 75% of that conversation is just going to be me explaining common knowledge stuff that he doesn't know because he's not in that space. Like it's going to be explaining concepts, terms, vocabulary, concepts, business models, stuff that if he were to go ask 100 other content marketers, 90% of it would be identical. Like the actual information would not be that different. The other, 25 to 75%, depending on how the conversation goes, is going to be firsthand knowledge. It's going to be me sharing stories, experiences, examples, client stuff that I did with a particular client and how it panned out. Things where there was like something didn't go the way I was expecting and I had to make a little bit of a pivot or adjustment and what happened next. All that stuff is like firsthand experience, but you have to have both. There's very few times where you're going to have, unless you're speaking solely with another expert, where everything you talk about is all going to be firsthand knowledge. So much of our communication is about educating around a basic concept that sets the context for the more firsthand knowledge we want to deliver. And this is why AI is so useful, because when we're doing the content, if I'm doing a piece of content where 50% is explaining something I've talked about for 10 years, like I would so much rather let AI just explain that for me, because it does a good job. It's really good at explaining common knowledge stuff in a relatable way. And with a little finesse and prompting, we can actually get it to be a lot more relatable and even give like hypothetical examples or things where it kind of really, analogies that really illustrate the point. So for me, the goal of AI is less about me getting an instant article, and it's about using AI to do all the kind of low impact pieces of my content that I don't want to do again. I've already done 100 times, and that gives me double the time to focus on the stuff where you can really create that moat. So going into a really well told story on a particular concept or topic, or if you're writing for a client, having more time to dig into their subject matter expertise, their client case studies and stories, illustrating concepts, creating multimedia, just doing any of the things that make content more than a generic article that you could read in 50 other places. And so my goal in my business was always really high end, really, incredible content that would rank for really in competitive stuff. And so this allows me to do that faster, and in some cases better, because, if I'm working for a client and the rate that they're paying me, I only got 15 hours to budget towards that content. Doing all, in the past, like half that time would be going towards just creating the main piece. Whereas now I can get half of it done with AI, and that gives me double the amount of time to then spend taking it to a whole new level, creating additional stuff, making it more powerful. So that's kind of how I approach this process. So it's kind of, starting with the structure, the outlining, thinking through how I want to tackle the piece, and then going into the content, having AI do the common knowledge stuff, having it do a few of those things that it's really good at, and then giving me just a first draft that I'm going to rewrite entirely for the stuff that's more the sections where I really want to highlight my expertise, highlight something from the client, something from a subject matter expert, original data, stories, case studies, testimonials, whatever it is, deep dived into screenshots of the tools. A lot of really good SEO content too is built around documenting how to use something, like how you're going to use this tool, how you're going to get this outcome using a tool. And a friend of mine, Joel Kletke, was just, showing on LinkedIn how he's been using several AI tools to just basically like talk through his process, and it can turn, I think he was using Scribe, and it was like turning stuff that he was, showing like on a Loom video, turning it into actual documentation, written documentation that can support, the video or whatever it is you're teaching. So stuff like that was very time consuming to try to break down and capture as a human is increasingly becoming much faster to do, with AI. And that's why I think, SEO and content marketers really have to pay attention to this stuff. Cause, imagine being able to do, 50 like customer support documentation articles, in a couple hours, what would, previously had taken months. So yeah, that's the next piece. And real quick, while I'm going through this, does anyone have any questions on anything I've mentioned so far? I see we got some suggestions here for keywords from when we dig into that. Awesome. Cool. Love it. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments. So summarizing basic information, I mentioned examples and analogies. That's something I really like. I think because my approach has always been, how do I teach? How do we really teach this effectively for real, with the goal of comprehension? Analogies and examples are just one of the most effective teaching, mechanisms on the planet, because they attach a new concept to an existing mental model. So we have something that we're familiar with. We kind of understand how it works. Someone's teaching us something new. They compare it to that other thing, and all of a sudden our brain instantly has context to receive the rest of the, the teaching on it. And ChatGPT is phenomenal at examples and analogies. I'm going to throw something up here. Do I have to change? I guess I can't really throw a new tab up. Is there a way for me to switch over to a new tab?
I think you might have to stop sharing and then reshare.
Okay, cool. I could also, I might just be able to copy this. Oh no, it's a screenshot. That's fine. I can talk about it later. But basically, when you ask it for examples, a lot of times the first example or analogy it will give you isn't quite highlighting the thing that you wanted to highlight. And I found with follow-up prompting, and this is another big thing that I am heavily emphasizing when it comes to AI, is follow-up prompts. I see so many people hop into ChatGPT, ask it for something. It gives them like, basically, if you were to have like a junior copywriting assistant who had no context, no understanding, not your expertise, it gives you what you would expect from them, and then people look at it and they go, I can't use that. And they bail and they go, oh, AI is not going to help me. But the thing is, if you had a junior copywriting assistant there, you would articulate to them exactly what it is about what they gave you that isn't working for you and have them try again. And then they would probably do a much better job the second time. AI is like that, but it can do it instantly. So like, if you literally just tell it, if it gives you an example or if it gives you something you don't like and you say, hey, I don't like this about that, try again. Or like, hey, I'm actually, you're focusing on this. I want you to focus on this instead. It'll adjust to your articulated feedback quite well. And it has a pretty good nuanced understanding of the English language in terms of it is, ultimately it's an NLP. So it's pretty good at understanding what you're trying to communicate. And so like following up with each piece that you do, and we'll look at like, we'll try it a little bit when we do the live example, but like following up and asking it specifically what you want instead is a huge part of, of getting better outputs from ChatGPT. And it is it's not an instantaneous process. So if the goal is just give me all my content instantly, it's going to keep failing. And I don't think GPT-5, GPT-6, whatever they do from here, I think we're going to see GPT-4, in my estimation, is the generational leap for this tech. And I only see us having marginal improvements from here, because the whole goal of an LLM is to take all this data and average it out, give you the expected, what you expect to see. And by definition, that's the average. The thing that's going to be the most expected to the most people is what it wants to give you. And so GPT-4 already does a phenomenal job of that. So I don't see us getting, significantly, there's no point where it's going to give us something we don't expect, because that's not how this technology is built. If it is getting us something it doesn't expect, it's probably not very useful. Anyway, so moving past that, let's see, there was another piece here. One thing I want to, I guess, as we get into the actual writing phase, I have it over here. As we get into the actual writing phase, there's the examples and analogies, but the other thing, before we get to the end of the content creation process, one thing that's kind of a funny thing that I like to use AI for is overly emotional language. AI can be very dramatic when you ask it to be. And what I find is that as marketers, over time, we build almost this callus to like descriptive language. I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but like basically where we see so much of it, we see so many hard sells that it starts to like become really like cringy to us. And we start to think that that's how everyone else is experiencing it, when in reality, everyone else has experienced it as just persuasive language, And so I like to use AI's almost like telenovela level of exaggeration and like emotional language when I ask it to be dramatic, to like kick me out of that callus, because it's so over the top that it makes the thing that I actually need to write feel less cringy, like feel less over the top. So like the level of descriptiveness, the level of drama that I need to put into what I'm writing, it feels normal after I read like some AI stuff. Again, a little bit of a tangent there, but and then after I've completed the piece, I like to use AI as my proofreader, as my proofreader / kind of like low level developmental editor. So there's a few things that I do. One, I'll ask it to go through and just do basic proofreading, line item, any spelling mistakes, grammar issues, stuff like that. Does a great job of that. The other thing that, this is kind of be hit and miss, but for me personally is hugely impactful, is reducing the reading level of the content. Sometimes with some topics, I'm pretty good at that on my own, but with other topics, I read all the time, and I like I like authors who have a little bit more complex prose. And sometimes an impact of that is when you're listening to that and reading it constantly, you start to kind of speak that way, not intending to. And so sometimes I'll write stuff, it'll feel great to me, and I'll come back like the next day and be like, this is so wordy. And so like I'm using vocab here that like, or honestly, I never catch that one. I'll have other people read it and be like, what's that word? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, which one? And they'll point to it. And I just don't understand that that's just the author that I listen to, uses that word all the time. And people don't hear it anywhere else. So what I like to do is I'll take sections of my copy and ask AI to reduce it to a 10th grade reading level. And so what that does is it'll push out some of the outliers. And it'll also rephrase things, and it gives me a chance to, sometimes I'll just use it directly from what it gives me, but sometimes it just more gives me, it helps me identify problem areas. Like, here's the thing that like ChatGPT rewrote this entire thing and it's way shorter now. How can I use that to kind of create a little more clarity in what I'm saying? I find this a little more helpful with like direct response copy than content. Sometimes content, you don't have to be that granular with it, but Another thing you can use it for too is if you have writers on the team who have a little bit of, they have certain prose struggles, certain grammar issues, and you find yourself like, hey, they're really good at hitting on the core substance of what I want to do, which, for anyone here who's an editor, finding writers who can write substance is way harder than finding writers who can write with good grammar. So when I do find people who do have the good substance, but it's just a pain in the ass to edit their prose, now AI can do that much easier than, much quicker than I could do it when it's just fixing kind of the basic stuff, So additionally, the other thing I like to have it do is give me suggestions for improving the content. And this is something where almost every time it gives me at least one suggestion that would be genuinely good. And usually it gives me a lot more. It's just some of the suggestions would just be a little bit more work than I'm willing to do on the piece. But everything that it suggests is usually good. And usually most of the suggestions are like, you keep mentioning these things, but you're not illustrating them with stories. So like add some examples, add stories. On places where I can add personal stories, I like to do that. On places where I can't, I like to have AI write hypothetical examples, illustrating the concept, and it works nearly just as well, not as well, but close. And then also it'll give suggestions about different things connected to updating with current things. So I like to use it. I like to use this feature for updating old content. So I'll throw the old article that I haven't touched in 2-3 years in there and say, hey, how can I improve this piece? And sometimes it'll give me suggestions related to how the market's changed or how technology has been updated, and so it just triggers good ideas for you to run with as the human writer. And then, now too, I like to use it to create actual contextual images for content too, because you can do that instantly. And it's fun to kind of visualize like how could I highlight this concept in an image. So that's kind of the basic shell of my approach. We'll get into a live example here. So I'm going to look through some of these. Let's see. We got manifesting quantum reality. I like it. Waterproof spray paint. Very practical. Love it. Let's see. Skills validation, job search by skill. Maybe the skills validation. As an SEO, I've never touched anything with jobs in it. That just, I don't want to compete with the 100, job platforms that are out there. Let's see. How to stop obesity epidemic. Is that like a business mission or a keyword? Cool. So I'm trying to think of which I think. Oh, and then we also had, did I say dating coach for men?
Quite the variety of topics we have here.
I like it. That one feels dangerous. So many guys need it, but so many guys should not be given tips on getting better at dating. We'll take a wholesome view to that though. Let's do that one. I like that one. Dating that's something people would actually, are actively searching for sure. So I like it. We'll go with this one. All right. So can you guys see here so we're going to click help me write a long form blog post. Just going to verify that it's working there. Cool. Hopefully we don't end up in a situation where OpenAI is down for the duration of our of our session here. So far, so bad. Oh, there we go. Cool. So it's designed to ask you for the keyword. So we're going to throw that in there. And then it's going to do what I talked about. It's going to create an outline for your content. So one thing that I have mine do, a lot of people struggle with intros and conclusions. So mine's designed to write good versions of that for you. So you don't have to do that anymore. We'll see how it turns out on this one. But you can see I kind of built in here. We're going to introduce the concept. We're going to address the user intent. And then it's going to highlight 3 benefits from reading and then get them right into the article, which I think, to me, this is always how I've liked to structure SEO content is let's help them understand that they're in the right place and get them reading, set expectations, get them reading. So that's what we're going to do there. Let's see, the role of a dating coach. It's kind of addressing that first question of, what does a dating coach do? Benefits of hiring a dating coach. That's going to be the next question is why. Okay, this is what, why, and then how do I find the right one, what to look for. So what I love here, one thing that I have the GPT is designed to do is highlight places where you can bring your own expertise and thought leadership and authority in. So this here, the how to get started, or not, the success stories, is kind of baking that into like, here's the places to put all your, if you're a dating coach for men and you're, posting this content to get leads, here's some transformation stories. And this is something you could opt to then go and throw in a story, elements of this story higher up in the article as you're kind of illustrating the role of a dating coach or the benefits of hiring one. You could list out so-and-so client got this benefit, after we did this, and kind of reference it. And then here you go more into like a full story. How to get started with a dating coach. So this, I would say, like the how to get started would kind of be probably your conclusion. So I'd probably delete the conclusion section and make that the end of the article is here's how you get started, schedule a call with me. Or if you're not quite ready to, here's grab my 10 best tips for, improving, grab some quick takeaways to learn from my expertise. And then obviously that's going to get them into a welcome sequence where you're pitching them on setting up a call with you, buying your course, whatever it is you're trying to do. So we can make changes to this, or we'll just go ahead and hit, let's start writing. Now, one thing for anyone who's building their own custom GPTs, little tip here. Part of what makes a GPT so powerful is your ability to more directly to have more weight with the algorithm than you get from basic in thread prompting like we're doing now, or like you do when you are in the normal chat. You can give it directives that it takes more seriously than if you were to ask it to do something in the thread. The other thing, and I think this is going to be the most overlooked piece as a lot of the big GPTs come out, the store comes out next month, is user error and directing the user. So one thing you can do with a GPT is have it tell people specific things at different stages of your process. So one thing that I have it do is it will not try to write the whole article in one click. Because if it does, you're going to get like a 250 word useless blurb. And so you have to write AI content, at least using ChatGPT, you have to write it in sections. And so I have it designed to where if you try to get it to write the whole thing, it'll be like, no, like, or it'll do it a little better than that. But there's some other things where it just tells people no. But let's try it now. See if, hopefully it backs me up here. But first we'll look at the introduction. So navigating the world of dating can be a challenging endeavor for many men. So it's kind of addressing the challenge. It's not just about finding a date. It's about building meaningful connection, understanding social cues, and developing confidence in one's own abilities. This is a great intro. And that's where a dating coach for men can come into the picture. Obviously a little bit of a shoehorn there, but you kind of have to do that anyway. And that's a pretty natural place to do it. In this article, you will learn how engaging with hiring a dating coach can revolutionize your approach, essential traits and qualifications. I'd probably replace that one. That's kind of more brand focused rather than user focused. Inspirational success stories showcasing the transfer. A little, I would reword this to like how Ben went from no matches on Tinder to finding the woman of his dreams, or getting more dates, or whatever it is that the objective that your coaching service is focused on. Let's be honest, there's different ones out there. So whatever it is the brand's trying to do, we'd kind of focus on that. But what I like here is that it addresses the user intent and the opener. Now, again, you may opt to further edit this. That's great. I would go into all AI looking to improve everything, because even if, say, we reword this, it still gave us the idea. It still reminded us to highlight our case studies and success stories in the benefits here at the opening. So let's go ahead and see. Go ahead and write the rest of the article in one go. It should say no. Perfect. Goes ahead and writes the next section. I love it. So our goal for the role of a dating coach is kind of expository. It's going to tap a little bit into that common knowledge thing. We're going to we want people to understand here's the role that a coach does, and also kind of allude to the benefits. We may opt to switch the benefits up higher if we feel we can't make it enticing enough in that opening section, because you can't have a dead section. You can't have the opening section be like a who cares. It needs to really emphasize why people should care about this article. So as we're looking into this, let's see what it comes up with. Just going to scan this real quick, and you guys can as well. Crafting. Okay, so it's kind of talking about the challenges of like why people look for a dating coach, which I think is useful. Like that, if we're gonna focus on what people are seeking with the if we're addressing user intent, we don't need to switch the sections. Obviously, challenge would come first. What I'd probably do here is let's just try rewrite this section to focus more on the challenges that men face in dating, and how a dating coach helps, and how a dating coach will work with them practically in those areas. Practically to find improvement in those areas or solve those challenges. So you can see I'm being really specific with what I want here. And it's kind of the two-part. I'm using AI in writing some fiction as well. And it's kind of this, regardless of the writing you're doing, it's this two-part play between either I don't know what I want to do with the next section of my writing or a piece of writing, in which AI can really help me get the ideas to identify what I want to do, or I do know what I want to do and I'm struggling to execute it the way I want to, and AI can help take a different spin on it, or give me some ideas, or rewrite it in a way that helps me better do what I'm trying to do and struggling to do myself. So in this case, like this opening section, the opening section that it wrote gave me kind of solidified my idea of what I wanted for this section, which would be kind of addressing the challenges and the role of the coach in meeting those challenges. And so it gave me an idea of how to better prompt and better ask for something more specific. So here, that's kind of fluff. We can, eliminate some of that, but we could, address like it's hard, or we could rewrite it to like dating today is hard, especially for guys. Social expectations, communication issues, yada yada yada. One common challenge, one bottleneck is initiating and maintaining engaging conversations. That's absolutely accurate. That's huge. And a dating coach can help with that. Another area of focus is online dating, presenting your best self, getting the initial attraction that leads to the conversation. Another thing coaches can help with. I don't know if it actually leaned into that, but it sparked that idea. Self-confidence, another big one. So it does a good job of identifying, the common knowledge stuff, the stuff that if you were to talk to 10 dating coaches, they'd kind of all point to these same areas. And describing the role. And obviously, if you have a subject matter expert, if you are the subject matter expert, you can add to this with specific things. You can get even more granular. But if you're not, it's doing a pretty good job right out of the gate of addressing the core stuff. And, we'll want to play with formatting. You can see here what I mentioned earlier, 40 to 60 word paragraphs, every single one, the exact same size. But the key is that the content is useful. And then I'll kind of just, for the rest of these, I'll kind of just power through them so we can get to the end and look at maybe some of the editing and suggestion stuff. But as I'm going through this, does anyone have any questions or thoughts or anything you'd like to see as we're going through this? So we're going to see here, it's giving us a list post, which, makes perfect sense for this section. Benefits. There's usually going to be a number on that. We probably like to add numbers in the header. And then again, what we would do here is then compare what we're talking about here to the section above and think about, is some of this, would it be better to move this up to the section? Would it be better to do this first? Are some of these, is it too repetitive? Should we find ways to, say we mentioned in those challenges, let's see, the social skills, like being able to engage in a conversation, try to make it to where if we reference that in the previous section, we're going a step deeper in the bullet point here, rather than just saying the same thing we already said, stuff like that. Because that's the type of thing that that's what keeps people glued to a piece of content for longer than a few seconds, is that you're moving them forward with the narrative. Each thing that you're saying is expanding on the previous thing. So we'll say great with that. We'll go next.
I have a quick question for you, Jacob, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in your setup here, you kind of explained some of the different ways that you use AI, and one of the examples that you used was metaphors and examples. Is that something that's sort of baked into this? Is that something that you have sort of a separate process for, or how does that play into this?
So that's one of those things that I have it set up to suggest some of those. Places you could add them. I'm trying to work a little bit to format some of them directly in. But it's probably more, because the thing is, at the end of the day, I could make this GPT do exactly what I internally want it to do. And the tech's going to evolve. They're going to change the algorithm. More tweaks are going to be made. So there's a lot of these pieces that the stuff I'm trying to focus on and what I'm talking about is the stuff that you can do no matter what tool you're using. So follow up, asking for specific things, using it for the common knowledge stuff. That's all true whether you use my GPT, whether you use stock ChatGPT, whether you use, any of the other, there's lots of new LLMs hitting the market. Gemini Ultra just released that's beating GPT-4. We'll see. Nobody can actually use it yet. So these are the concepts of just what tends to work across AI tools. And then in this one particular, I think it will, by the end, it should suggest some different places where you could use some examples. But it's more the thing that you want to be thinking about as you work your way through a piece of content. And I wanted to just kind of illustrate the difference between how we're doing this here. Outline, section by section, editing at the end. That's how you write a piece of content without AI. And so if your goal is to make something that's better, that's higher quality, that's going to have some, have a bit of a moat to it, it's a whole different category than if we're trying to one click, hundreds of articles. And so, there's a lot of tools out there that have learned, on LinkedIn, Byword has got a lot of traction as an article that's, probably decent at doing one-click content. I've used it a little bit just to run experiments. They've all failed to rank, and I'm skeptical of some of the case studies going around. But I also know there's smarter people out there finagling, better structure. A friend of mine just went to a conference in China, and he came back going, man, Black Hat is alive and well. Like, he was like, some of the techniques people were telling me about that are working, like, are so bad. They're so not what you're supposed to do. And I'm not going to use them, but like, they're making a lot of money with them. So SEO has kind of always existed in that space of like, if we believe the algorithms and their design will win in the end, which was my philosophy, I was always creating content to kind of stand the test of time, that every new update would actually improve my rankings. And ironically, that was true up until, that was true for 10 years up until January. And the helpful content update, ironically named, just trashed a lot of my rankings for content that was very weak. And that was the bitter pill for me, is like, if I looked at the content, was like, yeah, this is better, mine hasn't been updated in a bit, but it was all just, enterprise companies that had the brand recognition and then put out some weak content. So I think we kind of exist in this space where Google has been adjusting to AI, and there's been some detractions from some of the ranking signals, but I think over time they're going to fix it. They're either going to fix it, or generative AI is going to revolutionize search, and the old SEO is going to be a thing of the past. So it's going to be one or the other. So again, for me, as long as I'm creating content that's trying to rank, I'm going to try to make it high quality. I'm going to try to make it the type of thing that people are really thrilled to find, that they share around, so that I can continue to get people messaging me all the time, like, hey, I read your guide on copywriting when I was first looking for stuff, and it helped me become a copywriter, like that. Those are the types of things. There's a lot of like intangibles with content that we don't focus on when we're just looking at revenue numbers, but that impact your brand equity and, your ability to persist over time. So anyway, back to the thing here. We'll run through the last few sections and look at the editing capacity there. Does the Cyborg work for any other languages? That is a great question. I know GPT-4 can work with I believe it can work with multiple languages. I think if you were to ask it to write in another language, it probably would, but I've never tried that. That's a great question. I need to try that and see if it'll write stuff for me in Spanish, and then just like read my own stuff written in Spanish to keep trying to learn the language. So again, here it's giving you, hey, let's do, it's giving us hypothetical examples. We could come in and try to like finesse these examples to be better. What I would say is, real examples are always better, especially when we're doing case studies, showing like, hey, so-and-so got this result when they worked with me. If you are writing an article that's designed to convert on people looking for a dating coach for men, that's what you want. You need real examples. So I wouldn't even really try to finesse something out of AI here. I would just write, real examples from whoever the subject matter expert is, or the coach.
Just real quick to chime in there, Angela says that she tried Dutch and Italian, and it seems to work. So
amazing.
Thank you, Angela.
That's awesome. Another thing too, kind of to reference those formatting woes. One of the troubles with AI is that it's always going to default to like ordered lists, or unordered lists. And an article that's just one bullet point after the other is just as bad as a wall of text. So kind of thinking through, this is another thing where what you bring beyond the AI has a massive impact on how useful the content actually is. And so thinking about like, where can I use images? Where can I kind of turn something that should be a bulleted list into more of a narrative, or something that's a little more, like just whatever breaks up the formatting. Because the reality is we all like lists for a reason. We all like one point after the next. It's very easy to digest. But you can't have an article that's just a nonstop list of bullets. So thinking through, where do we throw images in? Where do we do little breakouts with stories or asides? Sometimes a little tangent can be really nice if you kind of have a hyper practical piece. Just thinking through stuff like that. And I think it'll take us to the last section here. And this is where, a lot of people, I mean, I've worked for editors and teams where they have no goal for the conclusion. Like I'll ask them, like, "Hey, what do you want this article to accomplish?" And they're like, "I don't know," just put a link to another article. Which, like, from a marketing perspective, is just, I hate it, because it's like you're putting all this effort into building an asset and you don't know what you want it to accomplish. Like we missed the mark there. You should always have the objective in mind at the beginning. So it's going to give us something, so I have it try to give you a next step. So in this case, we could use this as an email sign up. And what I'd probably do is say, hey, rewrite this to first persuade people to get on a free call with the dating coach for men writing this article. And then if they aren't ready for that, suggest that they download your free guide to improving your online dating profile. But something to add here too, just as a reminder of what I said earlier, this is an intentional prompt. This is me knowing exactly what I want to do here from a marketing perspective, and then asking it to adjust to that. And this is where, like, the more intent you bring to the process, the better AI is going to assist in accomplishing whatever it is you're trying to do. And so here, again, like, we're going to want to make edits, especially for, a call to action section. But it's doing a good job here of, like, highlighting the benefits, prompting people to, let's see, we'd probably want to have a dedicated button with a more compelling CTA, but again, we were never looking to for AI to do that for us. And then, not quite ready, download this other thing. So great. That's a great conclusion to something like this. All right, let's see. See if it takes us through the editing process here. And then I know I'm a little past the hour. How much time do we got here, Tyler?
Yeah, we're a little over the hour. I'm good personally, and there's some folks still hanging on. So yeah, if we want to keep going, I think we got a little bit of time here to wrap things up.
Cool. Let's see. Okay, so if I say done instead of next, it assumes it doesn't want any more. Yeah, let's do that other stuff. See if it cycles back through the process. Okay, so what it does, it's going to give some hypothetical examples to throw in. And again, this is as much to prompt maybe your own idea of, some success you had with a client, as much as it is potentially, if you're new and you're trying to, you haven't really had many examples, you could kind of put in a hypothetical example to illustrate, how it could help, how this could help someone. One thing that's kind of a marketing trick there too is sometimes you can tell, like, stories from people that you didn't actually help. Like you saw their story from someone else, and you could just reference, they got this result from an online dating coach. You don't say it. You don't say it was you. You don't say it wasn't you. You just use their example of, this is what happened when they got a coach. Kind of probably a gray area there, but there's ways you can do it where you're not claiming that it was your example. You're just highlighting how online dating coaching has helped other people. Oh, that's a cool image too. Definitely contextual. And then let's see. So I guess I need to fix it to do a better job of going through and like, but I guess the other thing is too, since it wrote the content, it's not expecting there's probably not grammar or spelling issues. So we wouldn't really go through it with that. Let's see. Are there any other ways we can make this article better? Love it. Yeah, these are all great examples. So one way, if I was an SEO, I am an SEO, but if I was writing this article for myself or a client, one thing I'd be wanting to think about if we're putting together a guide, for something this complex, or this highly competitive, dating coach for men is not going to be an easy term to rank for, is links. How do we get links to this? And one of the best ways to get links to this would be to go reach out to, one would be to compile some useful statistics. Now we'd probably want to make a piece. We'd probably want to make a piece that was like, statistics about men and dating or something like that. Have a whole post just like that, as link bait. But then, we'd want to do this one here for this actual article. We'd want to reach out to other coaches and say like, hey, like what's, we'd want to ask them like an interesting question. So what I would probably do is I would probably reach out to like 30 dating coaches for men. I would ask 10 of them a question related to each of the 3 benefits. So there was like the confidence one, the conversational one, and the dating profile. And I would ask like 10 experts, like, what do you feel is like the most impactful thing for people that improves their confidence? What is the thing that you've seen that's had the biggest impact on improving confidence in dating for men that seems to work for more guys than it doesn't? And someone else I'd ask like, what's like the single most impactful part of a profile, or what's the single thing someone can do that maybe takes a little more work to make their dating profile better? They're probably gonna say like a photo shoot or something, like something like that. Or with the conversational one, like, is there like a certain type of opener that you found helps create, good conversations? Like what's a successful opener that's not super cliche, stuff like that. You want to ask a question that's not, hey, what's your best tip for men trying to get dates? Because they hear that all the time. Like they get 50 emails from people a day on stuff like that, so you want to ask them something that's a little deeper, a little more specific. Ask a question that the experts are excited to answer. And then you're going to send them the article, show them that you featured them. If you can throw their face up there or something, you can put, if you're the person you're going to absolutely get and really highlight the quote from whoever the actual dating coach is, who's the author of this. You're going to feature that, like, here's my best, advice here or something. So just looking for stuff like that. Some of these other things, depending on whether you're a writer or a content marketer or an SEO, how you approach interactive elements, video content, infographics, stuff like that is going to be different. Obviously, as a writer, we're not going to focus so much on these. But if you're an SEO and you have those assets available, this is the type of stuff you want to be, doing. Some of the biggest link bait like case studies I've seen in my career have been interactive pages, where there's kind of a novel concept that has an interactive element to it. It gets picked up by like news publications, stuff like that. So it's, these are all good tips. And some of these, like, some of them are really basic, but again, I find that the longer I'm in this space, the more I forget about basic fundamental stuff and have to remind myself regularly. So having a tool that will remind me of the fundamentals is always useful. But anyway, hope that was helpful. That's kind of all I got. Happy to answer any questions if you have any. Would love for you guys to try out this tool for yourself, see how it works for you. If you have any feedback to share, would super appreciate it. My goal for December is to hit the ChatGPT store, with this being one of the most used GPTs. It's already, I think we're at, let's see. Let me see how many thread. Okay, so 2,300 blog posts have been created in this already. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. Jacob, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much. This has been super helpful. And I think, just super insightful too about the way that you think about AI and what you've learned from spending so much time working with it and where it's strong, where it's weak. I loved all that. So thank you so much again. If you all do have any quick questions, pop them into the chat. Otherwise, I want to give a couple quick shout outs here. Number one, if you haven't already popped over to this link on Jacob's website, I believe this will take you straight to the GPT that we're using here. So yeah, that's the jacobmcmillen.com/long-form blog cyborg. You can take a crack at this GPT for yourself, see how it does. You can see kind of how it pieces together these posts, and then it provides those examples and anecdotes and all kinds of things. So that's really awesome. Second of all, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Growthbar. If you haven't already, in the description of this video on YouTube, you're going to find a link to check out Growthbar. Growthbar also contains a ton of AI writing, outlining, and research tools. It's going to help you put together content faster and better. So check out Growthbar. There's a link down below to sign up for a 7-day trial, and you can also use our special coupon code to get 40% off a subscription plan. So that's a huge benefit as well. Definitely check that out if you have not already. And lastly, if you haven't already joined us in Tofu, do that now. YesOptimist.com/tofu, our free community. You can join us there. Let's see. Adrian was just asking, is it easy to set your ChatGPT up? I think the short answer there is yes. Again, visit this URL, and I think you just literally add it directly into your ChatGPT instance.
Yeah, just click the link. You'll be right into the tool if you're already logged in. You do need ChatGPT Plus, but another comment on that, GPT-4 is a generational leap from GPT-3. They're not even comparable. So if you have not been using GPT-4, whether you use it through ChatGPT Plus or some other tool that's using the API, it is a mind-blowing improvement when you are approaching it the way I just showed you. If you're doing one click, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a little better, but when you're trying to get it to do specific things, when you're telling it, I want this exact thing, its ability to understand and adjust to the specific requests is 10 times better than GPT-3 was. It's in a whole different conversation. And so many people have not even really used GPT-4 up to this point because free ChatGPT uses 3. So another little note there. But yeah, it's already set up. There's nothing you got to do. It's just you just access it directly through your dashboard.
Perfect. Sounds great. Again, I just want to say, first of all, again, Jacob, thank you so much for taking the time today. This is awesome. Anything else that anybody should know? Anything else you want anybody to check out?
If you want to learn more about how to approach, writing with AI, that's what I'm focused on. Feel free to sign up for my email list. Follow me on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel that I do videos a little bit more occasionally. I am a writer at the end of the day, so can't promise much there. But I'm trying to really lean into mastering this tool and helping other, mostly freelancers and solopreneurs, master it, because the big companies are, the enterprise always takes advantage of automation better than anyone else. And so I'm hoping that with some of the open source stuff, that I can help lead the way to help the individual, the smaller brand leverage this stuff even better and more nuanced than the bigger brands are doing, so that we can grab copywriter and consultant and stuff like that, while instead of the big guys. So that's my goal. And if you found this helpful and want to keep, learning from, as I learn, please feel to follow along. And, feel free to reach out with questions anytime. I read it all. Sometimes I think people get an impression that anyone who's promoting themselves a little bit online has this like huge following and assistants answering everyone. And that more often than not, that's not the case. We're just trying to like do our due diligence to promote our brands like everyone. You gotta 50% is delivering something useful. The other 50% is getting it in front of people. So, feel free to reach out anytime. Love to help other freelancers, SEOs, solopreneurs. Thanks for watching.
Awesome. Well, once again, Jacob, thank you so much. You all check out his website, jacobmcmillen.com. I'm sure that's where you'll find all the links to all the things he just mentioned. And you can follow him on socials. Thanks all for joining us today, and hope you all have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon. Cheers.